Nowadays, anyone can wrap a car in crazy color schemes. However, there are certain liveries that have withstood the test of time, not because they're wild designs and vivid colors, but because they adorn some of the world's most memorable and dominating race cars. 1970 kickstarted the history of Porsche carrying crazy liveries, and the 917 LH Hippie was the most famous of the bunch. Its legend is fully cemented in history, even with the younger generations. During the 1971 race at Le Mans, Porsche took pole position and managed to set the fastest average speed on the track. That year was a year of record for Porsche. Not only did the 917 get the fastest average speed for a qualifying lap, but the 917 also got the fastest top speed on the straight, the fastest ever lap during a race, and the winning car set the longest distance record, which wasn't broken until 2010. The Porsche 917 broke 4 separate Le Mans records with 4 different cars, solidifying the hippie colors in people's minds for eternity. It's not unusual to see crazy colored cars nowadays, but this particular color scheme is not just a wild color, it's a piece of automotive history. And out of the 3 Porsche that Gunderson built, this one, he took particular attention to the paint on it. He hired Freeman Thomas, who was the founder of the Porsche R Group, and also he worked at Porsche back in the day. He hired him to come and hand lay out this whole design on the car to make sure it was perfect. Over $65,000 was spent on the paint on this car alone. And because so much was spent time and money, he wanted to make sure that it was well protected. So not only is it a beautifully done paint job with everything being paint, there's not a single decal on this car, even the front emblem is hand painted. So when all that was done, he had the car ceramic coated, and then he had a full body bra put on the car. And a lot of people may be familiar with the clear bras put on the front of cars to prevent rock chipping, but what Gunderson did is he had the entire car wrapped in that clear coating. And a lot of times people have done that before, where they will come and put that coating on and cut it in place, but you risk ruining the paint that way. So they had to come, fit the car, take it off, hand cut it off of the car, put it back on, and it was quite the process. It took another $10,000 to have all that protection put on the car. So in total, about $75,000 was spent just on the paint on this car alone. I know I've been talking about the paint on this car the whole time just because it's such an icon and a head turner, but from the 917, where this livery came from, can't forget that this car is modeled after the Porsche RSR, which in itself is an icon. And if you've seen the other videos we've done, Gunderson had 3 of these built. And so I went into a lot of detail on the RSRs in particular in the other videos if you want to check those out. But just like the other 2 cars, there was no expense spared and no detail overlooked during the build of these cars. They are built to very much replicate and pay tribute to the original RSRs. When he bought the bodies, the 911s, the donor cars that went into building these, he had the media blasted, hand sculpted, the fenders in steel. There's no fiberglass anywhere on the cars. The front and the rear ducktail are aluminum to make them lightweight. There's just so much that went into the build that makes it really sets the car up nicely too, because there's no corners cut, there's no, nothing kind of half-assed in these cars. They're really well built, and when you're driving them, you can tell. While a lot of attention was paid to the paint on this car, that doesn't mean they lacked anything when building the engine. So yes, the paint was done. It was designed by Freeman Thomas, and then Speed Zone here in California did the paint, and they did an amazing job. But the engine, just like with the Golf car, it's a 3.5 liter, and it was built by Roth Sport Motors. And they did a fantastic job. And then once it was done, it was tuned by Cicada. So this car produces a little over 320 horsepower, and it has the dyno sheets to prove it. And I mean, when you drive it, you don't question that. You know it really has that horsepower. Plus, with the ultra wide rear wheels, it just sticks to the ground. And makes you pretty daring on corners. I mean, you really feel like you could just fly around corners and you're glued to the ground. So you can get in a lot of trouble in this car because it's just so easy to really kind of push the limits. It does everything right and it handles beautifully. Not only does this car handle amazing, but one of the things I really appreciate about all three of these Porsche is that the seats are so comfortable. I just can't get over the fact that you can sit here for hours and it's the perfect amount of like wraps you and it's cushy, and it's quite unusual to find a sports car like this that it has such comfortable seats. Plus, one of the things I find really interesting, I'm fairly short, I'm 5'7", and I fit the car perfectly. I have no issue reaching the pedals or anything like that. But my friend, who is 6'7", also fits in the car. And he said that pushing the seat back, he hits the pedals right. It doesn't, his knees don't hit the steering wheel. You can drive this car if you are 6'7", which is quite hard to find because we stick him in a lot of cars just to see if a tall person would fit. And for the most part, no. At 6'7", you're pretty limited. Another thing I like about this car is, like all the other ones, it's all the attention to detail. And so the interior of this car has the purple dash that matches the exterior, but it's nicely offset by the black on top. So it's not too loud and too in your face. It's a nice contrast. Plus it has the same hippie colors around the key right here. And it has the green stitching on the roll bar, which are just those nice little finishing touches that just bring everything together and make it really high quality. It has been an absolute pleasure to video and drive all three of these amazing cars. And if you haven't seen the other two videos, I definitely recommend checking them out, simply because I try and talk about a little bit, different things in each one. They go a bit more into the RSRs in particular and stuff like that. So if you have been a subscriber, then you've probably watched them. And if you're not, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed this video, learn a little bit about these cars, and stay tuned because we got a lot more content coming out very soon.